For most of her life, Lyrian had learned the art of becoming unseen. On crowded concourses, she folded her frilled wings tight against her narrow back, dulling their natural iridescence by sheer force of will. In transit halls, she kept her head bowed so her crest did not catch the light. On public transports, she always chose the same place, the seat beside the emergency bulkhead, where the lighting was poor and the aisle traffic thinned. A place no one wanted. No one ever chose it anyway. The Galactic Transit Authority called the vessel Horizon's Grace, a long-haul interstellar liner designed to move diplomats, traders, and migrants across 8 systems in relative comfort. For Lyrian, it was simply another step in a quiet, unremarkable life, one she hoped would pass without incident, without notice, without pain. Her species, the Varelli, were not rare, but they were overlooked. Tall, slender, with elongated limbs and expressive eyes that reflected emotion too easily, they were considered fragile by many of the older spacefaring races. Useful as clerks, assistants, translators. Not leaders. Not warriors. Not companions of consequence. Certainly not someone you chose to sit beside. As Lyrian settled into her seat, she wrapped her hands together in her lap, claws interlaced. The soft hum of the ship's engines vibrated through the deck plating, a constant reminder that she was in motion, carried between stars that would never know her name. Around her, passengers filled the cabin. A pair of Korthi merchants argued loudly 2 rows ahead, their armored hides clanking as they gestured. Behind her, a group of students chirped excitedly in 3 different languages. Across the aisle, a tall Sarati noble reclined with an air of practiced superiority, eyes flicking briefly toward Lyrian before dismissing her entirely. Good, she thought. Invisible. She had learned young that being seen invited judgment. Judgment led to disappointment. Disappointment led to rejection. The seat beside her remained empty as the boarding chime sounded. The overhead lights dimmed slightly, signaling imminent departure. Lyrian allowed herself a small breath of relief. Then footsteps stopped beside her. She did not look up at first. Many beings paused near the emergency bulkhead, scanning seat numbers before moving on. It would happen. It always did. But these footsteps didn't move away. A shadow fell across her lap. "Excuse me," a voice said.
Low. Warm.
Unmistakably human. "Is this seat taken?" Lyrian's heart skipped so sharply it hurt. Slowly, she raised her head. The human stood in the aisle, one hand resting on the seat back, a travel bag slung over his shoulder. He was taller than her by a head, broad-shouldered, dressed in the simple attire of a civilian traveler. Dark hair, tired eyes, and a faint scar along his jawline. Old, healed, earned. He was looking directly at her. Not past her. Not through her. At her. "I know," she said, voice barely above a whisper. "It is not." "Mind if I sit?" he asked, already angling his bag into the overhead compartment. Her frill fluttered involuntarily. "I know. I mean, yes. You may sit." He smiled, not the sharp, polite curl she had seen humans use in formal settings, but something softer. Genuine. "Thanks," he said, settling into the seat beside her. The cushioning shifted slightly under his weight, a tangible confirmation that this was real. As he buckled in, Lyrian stared straight ahead, her pulse racing. Humans were different, not just biologically, but socially. They had a reputation across the coalition for unpredictable kindness and alarming intensity. They bonded quickly. They defended fiercely. And, most troubling of all, they noticed things others did not. She had hoped to avoid them. The ship lurched gently as it disengaged from the station, stars stretching into luminous threads beyond the viewport. For a moment, Neither of them spoke. "I'm Daniel," the human said eventually, offering his hand. Lyrian hesitated. Physical contact was intimate in her culture, but refusing would be rude. Carefully, she placed her smaller hand in his. His grip was warm,
Steady.
he did not squeeze too hard. "Lyrian," she replied. "Nice to meet you, Lyrian." No hesitation. No mispronunciation. He had said her name as if it mattered. They sat in silence again, but it was not the suffocating quiet she was used to. It was comfortable. "You travel often?" Daniel asked after a while. She shook her head. "This is only my third long transit." "Same," he said. "I usually take shorter hops. But work sent me farther out this time."
Work, she echoed.
"Human Relief Corps," he said casually. "Reconstruction and aid. We help rebuild after conflicts, disasters. That sort of thing." Her eyes widened despite herself. "You are to help her." He chuckled softly. "That's one way to put it." Lyrian considered that. A helper. Someone who went where things were broken and tried to make them whole again. The idea resonated in a way she did not expect. "And you?" Daniel asked. "If you don't mind me asking." "I am going to accept a clerical post," she said. "On Velis Prime." "First time there?" "Yes." "I've heard it's beautiful," he said. "Wide oceans. Long sunsets." She nodded. "So they say." As the hours passed, conversation flowed more easily. Daniel spoke of worlds he had seen reduced to rubble and then slowly rise again. Of children who learned to laugh amid ruins. Of strangers who became family through shared hardship. Lyrian listened, captivated. No one had ever shared stories with her like this before, as if she were worth the time it took to tell them. In return, she spoke, hesitantly at first, about her upbringing on a crowded Varelli colony, about always being overlooked in favor of louder voices and brighter wings, about learning to stay quiet because quiet things did not get hurt. Daniel did not interrupt, did not offer platitudes. He simply listened. At one point, turbulence shook the cabin, and without thinking, Lyrian's hand tightened on the armrest. Daniel noticed. "Hey," he said gently. "You okay?" Yes. It is nothing." He nodded, then did something unexpected. He rested his forearm on the shared armrest close, but not touching. An offer, not an imposition. "If it gets rough," he said, "you're welcome to grab on. Humans are good at being handles." A startled laugh escaped her before she could stop it. The sound felt foreign in her throat. "Thank you," she said softly. Midway through the journey, the ship's intercom chimed. "Attention passengers," the captain announced. "We have received a priority distress signal from a civilian shuttle adrift in this sector. The Horizon's Grace will be altering course to provide assistance. Delay is estimated at 3 hours." The cabin erupted in mixed reactions. Groans from those with schedules. Concerned murmurs from others. Lyrian felt a familiar knot of anxiety twist in her chest. Distress signals meant danger. Uncertainty. Risk. Daniel, however, straightened slightly, eyes sharpening with focus. "Looks like we're working today," he murmured. Before she could ask what he meant, a second announcement followed. "Any passengers with emergency response training are requested to report to Deck 3. Daniel stood, already unbuckling. "I should go," he said, grabbing his bag. Then he hesitated. "I'll be back." "Okay." She nodded, watching as he disappeared down the aisle, swallowed by the movement of the ship. The hours stretched on. Lyrian tried to distract herself, but her thoughts kept returning to the human who had chosen her seat. Chosen her. When Daniel finally returned, his clothes were smudged with grease and something darker she did not want to identify. He looked exhausted, but alive. "They're safe," he said, collapsing into his seat with a relieved sigh. Engine failure. Families aboard. Scared but unharmed. That is good, Lyrian said, meaning it deeply. He glanced at her, then smiled faintly. Thanks for saving my seat. The rest of the journey felt different. Lighter. When the ship finally arrived at Velis Prime, passengers disembarked in a steady flow. Lyrian hesitated, gathering her belongings slowly. This is me, she said, standing. Me too, Daniel replied, surprising her. I'm stationed planetside for a few weeks. They walked together through the terminal, side by side. Before parting ways, Daniel stopped. Hey, Lyrian, he said. Can I tell you something? Yes. When I boarded, I saw a lot of empty seats, he said. But yours was the only one that felt right. Her frill flushed with color, bright and undeniable. I am glad, she said, voice trembling, that you chose it. He smiled. So am I. As they went their separate ways, Lyrian realized something profound. For the first time in her life, she did not feel invisible. She felt seen. And somewhere deep within her, something fragile and wonderful unfurled, wings no longer folded tight, but ready, at last, to catch the light. Velis Prime's sky was a soft gradient of copper and violet when Lyrian stepped out of the transit terminal. The air carried salt from the distant oceans, warm and heavy, nothing like the recycled sterility of the ship. For a moment, she simply stood there, travel case at her side, watching the sky change as the planet's twin suns dipped toward the horizon. She should have felt small. New world. New job. No family waiting. No expectations beyond quiet competence. That was how it had always been. Yet her chest felt strangely full, as if something inside her had shifted during the journey and refused to settle back into its old, folded shape. She caught herself glancing around the terminal plaza, a ridiculous, hopeful instinct she didn't fully understand. And then she saw him. Daniel stood near the edge of the crowd, jacket slung over one shoulder, speaking with a uniformed relief coordinator. He looked tired, posture loose in the way of someone who had learned how to keep going even when exhausted. When his gaze lifted and found her, his expression changed instantly, eyes lighting with unmistakable recognition. He excused himself and crossed the plaza. Hey, he said. I was hoping I'd catch you before you left. Her frill fluttered unbidden. I thought you had duties. I do, he admitted, but they can wait 5 minutes. They stood facing one another, the noise of the terminal flowing around them like water around stones. I start my post tomorrow, Lyrian said, unsure why she felt the need to explain. Clerical archives. Population logistics. That sounds important, Daniel replied without irony. She blinked. Most do not think so. Well, most people are wrong about a lot of things. That familiar warmth returned, spreading through her chest. They walked together toward the edge of the plaza where the city opened up, sleek spires, hanging gardens, and distant waves glinting beneath the suns. For a while, neither spoke. Lyrian, Daniel said finally, more serious now. Back on the ship, I meant what I said. I know, she replied quietly. I didn't choose your seat because it was empty, he continued. I chose it because you were there. You looked like someone who had been waiting a long time for the world to notice her. Her steps faltered. I've spent my life believing that being unseen was safer, she said. That if I was quiet enough, small enough, I would not be hurt. He stopped walking. Gently, he turned to face her. And were you, he asked. She thought of the years of silence, of opportunities passed by, of wings folded so tightly they ached. No, she admitted. Daniel nodded, as if that answer mattered. Being invisible doesn't protect you. It just keeps the good stuff from finding you. They stood there as the suns dipped lower, painting the sky in fire. I'm not very good at boldness, Lyrian said, but I am trying to learn. A slow smile spread across his face. You're doing great so far. From across the plaza, a voice called Daniel's name. He grimaced slightly. Duty, he said. Persistent thing. She felt the old instinct rise, the urge to step back, to let the moment fade, to accept that this was all it would ever be. Instead, she surprised herself. Daniel, she said. He turned. When your duties allow, she continued, voice steady despite the rush in her veins. Perhaps you would like to see the oceans you mentioned. I would not wish to see them alone. For a heartbeat, he simply stared at her. Then he smiled, wide, bright, unmistakably human. I'd like that very much. They exchanged contact codes. A small thing, a monumental one. As Daniel jogged back toward his waiting team, Lyrian remained where she was, watching him go. Not with the hollow ache she had known all her life, but with something new, anticipation. She turned toward the city, toward her new life. This time, she did not fold her wings tight. She let them rest naturally at her sides, catching the light of Velis Prime's suns as she walked forward, no longer invisible, no longer alone, and no longer afraid of being seen. Because one human had chosen her seat, and in doing so, reminded her of something the galaxy had long forgotten. Even the quietest soul can shine, once someone finally looks closely enough to notice.